Great. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to Umesh Shah Presents Sunday Life and Learn Talks. Today's speaker is Aziz Velji, who will be talking about meditation made simple. As a student, teacher, and author, Aziz's background encompasses specialized areas of study and continuing education in philosophy, psychology, meditation practices, quantum physics, brain enhancement, neuroscience, and lucid dreaming. Aziz is the author of Calm Brain, Powerful Mind, Abolish Stress to Unleash Your True Potential. This book has got a 5-star rating on Amazon. I've started reading it. I've gone through quite a bit of it, and it's an excellent book. So if anyone hasn't got it, go to Amazon. I've got the hard copy, and there's the PDF version or the ebook on Amazon as well. Aziz, without taking more time, over to you.
Thank you, Umesh. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining today. Okay, so we can begin. Let me just get myself up on the screen. There.
Perfect.
Okay. Sometime back, I had the opportunity to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. At 19,000 feet, just over 19,000 feet, or under 6,000 meters. It is the highest freestanding mountain in the world. The most amazing, the most beautiful and exhilarating part of the climb was not when we reached the summit, but when we broke through the cloud cover and we came upon the mountaintop framed against the blue sky. And all of a sudden, all the thunderstorm activity was below us, below the clouds. Now, the cloud and the sky is a great analogy for the dual consciousness, our dual consciousness. Just like the blue sky is just beyond the clouds, our natural state of being is just beyond the ego self. Now, as we were climbing, at one moment we were in the thunderstorm activity of the rainforest, and all of a sudden, a thick cloud of fog just came on top of us, and we couldn't see anything. And with the light strapped on our foreheads, we could just see in front of us, one step at a time. Now, there is a mantra for high mountain climbing, and it is the Swahili word for pole, pole, slowly, slowly, step at a time. And since we couldn't see anything in front of us, we just focused on each step as we went forward. And after a few hours of hike, we came out on this, and everything opened up, and we saw the sky. In the same way, we have to go through the cloud of the ego to come to the natural state of being, of our true self. Just like the sky is the background on which everything happens, on which the planets happen, which the clouds happen. In the same way, our natural state of being is the background on which our life situations happen, our ego self happens, okay? And just like nothing affects the blue sky, the cloud activity or anything else, our natural state of being, nothing affects it. All the egoic turbulence of a day-to-day situations are below it, and nothing affects our true self. And just like the sky is everywhere, and you can see it everywhere, our natural state of being is not your natural state of being or my natural. We are all connected at that level. We are separate at the ego level, at the ego self, but at the natural state of being, we are all the same. Now, many of us have forgotten this state of mind, and we're focused on the ego, and we're identified with the ego. Ego is important, but when we are overly identified, we forget who we actually are. Time to time, we get, when we are basically watching, let's say, a gorgeous sunset, or having coffee with our friend, and we are happy, we touch our true sense, but it doesn't last. We fall back into our ego way. So the purpose of meditation is to penetrate through this cloud cover of the ego and touch and remember our true self. Okay. It is also, once we have touched it, to stabilize it, to make it stable. And the third part is to bring it into our day-to-day lives. So that is what meditation is all about. Okay? So for today, what we're going to cover is the purpose of meditation, which I just briefly talked about, the 5 components of meditation, so that once you understand each component, you can put them together when you sit for meditation. We'll do a short practice to see how these components come together. And I'll leave you with a simple mindfulness practice to get you going on the practice. And then, of course, we'll have Q&A. Again, the purpose of meditation is to penetrate to the cloud of our conditioned ego self. And I'll explain some of these words as we go along. It is to remember our natural state of being. And why do I say remember? It's not that you're discovering it as something new. This is something that we can with, but we've forgotten. So we have to remember it. Once we started working with it, then we need to stabilize it so that we can make it our day-to-day state of mind. So meditation is what it does. It will bring about a transformational shift in awareness. When we go through, the positive effects of meditation, once they work through us, it gives us a new way of perceiving the world. And Krishnamurti, an Indian mystic, the way he talks about it is saying it's an inward or psychological revolution. It implies a complete transformation, not only of the conscious mind, but of the unconscious as well. Now, when I use the word mystic or mystical, there is no magic in it. All it means, mystic means that he or she has gone within themselves rather than the focus being outside. They've gone within themselves and understood and worked with their minds. That's what being a mystic is. Okay. So what do I mean by our conditioned ego self? This is our self-memorized framework of beliefs, habits, attitudes that we have picked up through life. It's the accumulated psychological content which resides in our subconscious brain, okay, and becomes the center of our personality. It's the masks that we wear and we show off to the world, that this is who we are, this is what I can do, there's no one like me. Or the ego self, and it conditions the way we view the world. So we look at the world through this, however we have been conditioned, okay? And it blocks the actual world. So the deduced set of consciousness we just talked about, I'm sure you in terms of the mountain, but here it is another way that I can explain. In the center is the inner core, inner essence, and we have built a layer of mental framework, concepts, or what we call conditioning over time. In fact, the 80% of this conditioning happens, 70 to 80% happens in the first 7 years of our lives. Now, what that means is that in the first 6, 7 years of lives, we are not conscious. the brain is still subconscious. Okay, so we're operating from subconscious mind. And so everything that we accumulate just comes in one way. We have no say in it. Okay, so that is whoever is our parents, caregivers around us, friends, schools, whatever, everything they've said to us, we just speak it because we don't have the conscious mind ready yet to even to judge or say whether this, what I'm picking up is right or wrong. Okay? The remaining 15-20% is built on it as we age. And by 35, what they've said, studies have shown, is that our identity is complete. So we are conditioned, and this is who we are. Okay? Studies have also shown that almost 65-70% of everything that we have accumulated when we were young is disempowering to us. It comes in our way when we're living our lives. So, for example, if my parents were angry when I was growing up, when I was very young, then I look at anger as a way of working with the world. So I see the world through my anger. Okay, it's the same way that if you have a child that you take to a store, and the 3-4-year-old child is crying for something, a toy or a candy or something, and you straight away, without thinking, you say to the child that you don't deserve it, okay, because you did so and so, you misbehaved, or let's say you misbehaved. Now, a child of 3 or 4 years old has no concept of the cause and effect. So, for example, he says, I did this, so this is the end result. All it knows is that I don't deserve it and I misbehaved. And so what that happens, that becomes part of the conditioning. He or she carries it through life. So whenever you come close to getting something that you want, you're working towards in a career or somewhere, you sabotage yourself because in the mind, the background, it says that you don't deserve it. So that is the power of conditioning. The ripple effect of meditation. Now, all these things that I've mentioned up here will not appear straight away. And just like the ripples, when you throw a stone in a pond or a water, the ripples move away in the water. In the same way, the effect of meditation, it will ripple through your lives. But just like if you've just thrown the stone one time, the ripples will stop after a while. You got to keep throwing the stones to keep the ripples going. And so what it means is that you have to keep practicing meditation to get all these effects to start coming into your life. What does it mean? It switches our mindset from me to the present moment awareness. Now, when I say me, what I mean by me is not only me. It's me, my family, my friends, my country, my kind of people, and so on. And that's how we live our lives. Okay, it's always about me. It's a survival mentality. With meditation, it shifts the mindset. It becomes much more present moment awareness that you are here, and it's not only about me. It's about us. It's about everyone. It increases our ability to manage uncertainty. Just like I mentioned to you on the mountain climb, when the fog came in and we couldn't see in front of us, just that's the way life is. You can't see tomorrow what it is. But what you can do is you can pay attention to here and now, to this step, and slowly, pole, just keep moving forward. Okay, that doesn't mean that you got to slow down in your everything that you do. All it means is you pay attention to here and not get overwhelmed with what's going to happen tomorrow, or being taken over by something that is in the past. Okay. It increases our power of attention because the more you focus in the here and now, your attention gets stronger. Because right now the attention is fragile, and it gets carried away by everything, by our mind chatter, by social media, by everything that it sees outside. We don't have control over it. We recover faster from stress and adversity, and that is, and this is true because you're able to pick yourself up because you are here and you meet a challenge as you go along. Okay, so it doesn't overwhelm you. It builds our emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is different from the IQ. IQ, the intelligence, is in most cases whatever you come up with when you're born. It doesn't change much. The emotional intelligence can change until the day you die. Okay, and what it means, emotional intelligence, is to become self-aware. When you become self-aware, then you become aware of your emotions and you can manage your emotions. Okay, and once you know how to do that, then you know how to deal with other people and other people's emotions. So that's the emotional intelligence that becomes part of the whole thing once you start with the meditation. It rewires, the studies have shown that rewires the brain for happiness. There's certain parts of the brain which it reinforces the neuron connections, and so happiness, the chance of happiness a lot more. It slows our aging process. Their studies have found that the cortical thickness of our thinking brain, as we age, normally starts to thins, it becomes thinner. But what they found with the meditation is that it stabilizes and the degradation is a lot slower. It engages the whole brain. Right now, most of us are very rational. We only use the left side of our brain to do what we want to do. It's not that we don't use the right. It's there, it's being used, but it's not used consciously. With meditation, the right side even starts to come online, and the both of the brains start to work together. And when they work together, the sum, the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. And so the whole brain starts to get engaged and coherent, okay? So the 5 components of meditation: the beginner's mind. There's a technique, and the technique could be becoming, I talk about becoming aware of your breath, but there are many techniques, many forms of meditation. But here we'll use breath. The process of relaxation, and it's important. How do we relax? And once we know that, then we can control the state of mind that we want to be in. Right now, we have no control. Understanding and becoming comfortable with our minds, with our internal world. Learning to sit in silence. Now, each of these components is powerful in its own way. Or even if you just do the beginner's mind, and I'll explain each one of them, it's powerful. Just conscious breathing, even if that's the only thing you do, that's fine, you know. Anyway, let me take you through and talk about what a beginner's mind is. A beginner's mind is an I don't know mind. It's patient. It's loving and compassionate. And again, I'll talk about it a bit more in each one of these. A mind that does not discriminate. It's like a child's mind, curious, excited, happy, and having fun as it's learning. So what is a beginner's mind? I mean, the phrase came from this guy, Suzuki. He's the guy who was instrumental in bringing Zen Buddhism to North America. And he says that in the beginner's mind, or he said, in beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in experts, there are very few. So there was this professor of Zen who had been teaching for years and teaching all sorts, I mean, everything about Zen, everything about Zen. And he wanted to go and talk to a Zen master and learn more, see if there was anything more to learn. So he goes to the Zen master, and as soon as the Zen master opens the door, the professor starts talking about, you know, how good it is and how much is done and how people change and all that stuff. And the master is just listening to him as he's walking into the house. And the master orders tea with two cups, and he gives the cup to the professor, and he starts filling the cup with tea, and keeps filling, and the cup is getting filled. And the professor thought the master would stop pouring the tea, but he keeps pouring, and the tea starts overflowing. So the professor says, "What are you doing? You know, the tea is overflowing." He says, "That's how your mind is. You come here with all these ideas. What can I talk to you about? There's nothing to talk about because you know everything." Okay. So then the question comes in, okay, what if I have an open mind? I remember someone sending me emails when I was working, and with a tagline saying that the mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. The problem with that is when I say that I'm open, my mind is open, what I'm saying is I know whatever I know. Now, you tell me whatever you want to tell me, and I'll evaluate and see whether it fits in with what I'm talking about, or what you're talking about. A beginner's mind, and I don't know mind says, I don't know. So I'm ready. I'm willing. I'm going to grasp everything that you say. Even if I know this thing, you put it on the side. And the chances are that you learn more of whatever you're doing in anything that you want to do. Okay. A beginner's mind is patient. Now, our minds are very turbulent. Okay, they just keep going back and forth, running around all over the place. I have a quote up here. It's a bit long, so please excuse me, but it's an amazing description of how the mind works. Okay, it's from the Sanskrit Sholka. It's a monkey mind. It says the mind is like a monkey, inebriated, stung by a scorpion, and seized by the demon, all at the same time. Like a monkey, it displays habitual restlessness. It can travel in many different directions and give us myriad of thoughts in no time at all. And I'm sure that we all have noticed that. Under the influence of alcohol, it has endless designs, cravings, and delusions of grandeur. The scorpion sting brings out the envy and jealousy within us. Not only do we want this grandeur for ourselves, we hate it when someone else gets it. Seized by the demon is obsessed with vanity and pride about its delusions, conclusions, points of view. Amazing the way it describes the mind. So, if the mind is restless, what do we do? Then I'll talk about something later on. I'll show you a technique that how you can move beyond or go below the mind chatter. But one of the things that I've noticed is when my mind is just going and I can't stop it, or for example, if I'm upset or if I'm angry, it doesn't happen that often, but even if I get upset, and I notice that if I try and stop it, it doesn't work. So all I tell myself is, okay, Aziz, be upset. And within a short time, the mind starts to quieten down. And the reason is because there's nothing to fight anymore. Because you're saying, sure, go ahead and be upset. And the ego doesn't have anyone to fight with. Okay, so slowly it becomes quiet. So whatever you resist will persist. Okay, so even with the mind chatter and everything else, if you keep trying to stop the mind, it's going to keep going. But if you just let it be, it will settle down. Just like you take a glass of muddy water and keep it on the side, and the sand and everything else just starts to drop down and the water becomes clear. The same way, that's the way the mind would work. A beginner's mind is loving and compassionate. Now it's interesting, many times I ask people that, do you love yourself? And straight away I get an answer from them, says, what do you mean, do I love myself? Of course, we all love ourselves. The problem is we don't. If we did, we would not give ourselves such a hard time about anything and everything, basically. You make a decision, 5 minutes later, you're giving yourself heck, saying you shouldn't have said that, you shouldn't have done that, whatever it is. But remember, when you make a decision at a point in time, right now, knowing what you know. 2 seconds from then, or 5 minutes from there, new information might come in. But you can't go back and say that you messed up and you should have known this information. Of course you don't. So we have to be kind to ourselves. We have to be compassionate to ourselves. We have to be forgiving. We have to forgive ourselves. When you do that, you start to forgive others. You're not as hard on others. Okay, so you understand people do make mistakes. They're not mistakes as such. Okay, but we can move on. We can work with the person. A beginner's mind does not discriminate. What does it mean? We are very rational minded right now. And sometimes we think, and there's a saying says if you're too clever, you could miss the point entirely. Because whenever things come about mindfulness, meditation, and everything else, many people have this tendency of arguing and talking about and not want, or coming up with different arguments. With this meditation, with what we're trying to say, what we're trying to do is, what we have to do is lower that rational boundary that we have created and just look over on the other side, okay? And just be much more open to what's happening. A beginner's mind is like a child's mind, curious, excited, happy, and having fun as it's learning. I mean, have you noticed children? They're always happy, always running around. It's as someone said, if I ask you how many times you were happy today, most people would not even remember they were happy, or they might say, yes, I was happy. So you say, what made you happy? So something happened and it made me happy. For a child is always happy until something makes it unhappy. Yeah. Now, and they are learning so much in the first few years of life. They have to get going so that they can carry on with life. And so the only way to learn is when you have a curious and excited mind and you're happy. It's easy to learn. This is what a philosopher said over 2,000 years ago. The face of a wise man is not somber or austere, contracted by anxiety and sorrow, but the opposite. It's radiant, serene, and filled with vast delight, which makes him the most playful of men. Okay, that's the way, we have become too serious in life. Everything is serious. We need to let go. We need to loosen up. Okay? Technique. Conscious breath. So we'll talk about Brain 101, the power of conscious breathing, and the technique is just a tool, an anchor. Okay? So why do I want to talk about the brain? I'll give you a hand model of the brain that was developed by Dan Siegel. And it's a very handy model to know. And the reason is because when you understand different parts of the brain, it's easier to be able to focus and pay attention to whatever, whichever part is you want to connect with and you want to link it. Okay, because if you don't know, then you don't know how the brain is working. So if everyone can, if you can put your hand out like this, okay, then tuck your thumb inside like this, like so, and then curl your fingers on top so that the fingernails are touching the palm up here. Now, this is the hand model of the brain, and it sits like this. So this part is the prefrontal cortex, is just behind the forehead up here, okay? So now let's open this brain hand and see what we have. This part here is the oldest brain. It's the brain stem. And it's sometimes called the reptilian brain, and I call it the alligator brain. Okay, it's over 400 million years ago. It's primitive. It's subconscious, meaning that it's not conscious at all. I mean, it reacts to things. The brain stem is connected to your spinal cord up here. So there's an information transfer between the brain stem and the spinal cord and the body. And so the brainstem regulates and monitors our breathing, our heart rate, blood pressure, everything else, because that's the information going back and forth. Here also, this is a place where the fear, the fight, flight, and freeze responses come from. When we are threatened, all of a sudden, this is the brain that starts to react. For example, if you're at work, or if you're walking and something threatens us, this is the brain that gives that response. Here also stays our conditioning, what we just talked about, the subconscious conditioning. Okay, so it becomes an automatic. We don't have to think. So, for example, if you learn how to ride a bike, initially when you're learning, you're totally paying attention to riding. But pretty soon you can ride without even thinking. So that riding the bike gets in here as well. It's an automatic process. Okay. This brain works very closely with the next brain that came in when we became mammals. Okay. This is the emotional brain, or it's called the limbic system, or as I call it, the lion brain. Okay. And it is, and the brain stem and the emotional brain, they work together to create emotions. This is where memories are made. This is where attachment happens. For example, attachment to our parents when we are kids, the babies. This is the attachment when we are friends with our friends and everyone else. The attachment starts from here. Okay, this is also where the place where it motivates our behavior, because we are driven towards pleasure and away from pain. So this is something like something that the carrot and stick method used by many companies, and some still do. It's like, if you do this work, I'll pay you more. Or it's like what we do to tell the child, eat your broccoli, and then you can go out to play. That's the kind of thing that happens up here. Then came the monkey, the cortex. It spreads from the back of the hand all the way down up here. That's the cortex. It's what I call up to here, just before the second knuckle of the fingers. It's the back cortex called the posterior cortex. This is the frontal cortex. The back part of it makes maps of everything that we see, we hear, the way we move, everything. So it's a map making. It's also what I call the monkey mind. It's our rational mind. This is where the ego stays. Ego is home. So when this brain developed about 3 million years ago, and developed in parts. The first part and the second part came about the prefrontal cortex, which is just the nails up here with touching the palm. And the purpose of the prefrontal cortex is to integrate all the brains. When the brains are integrated, there is harmony. When it's not integrated, there is disconnect, rigidity, or chaos. Okay, rigidity means that you just follow the routines to do everything. Chaos means you're explosive in your nature and all that, so you have no control of it. And so we need to make sure that the prefrontal cortex integrates and controls everything, because this is our high functioning brain. This is where the planning, execution, everything else come in, attention, focus. That's where it is. But the main purpose is to integrate all the brains so they work in sync. Okay. And this is the way it is based. It is in our brain. So here is the alligator brain, the instinctive brain. It is subconscious. It's fear and aggression. The main purpose is survival. Okay, and it moves and it's in autopilot, because that's the way it can work faster. It can react to things. Next came the mammalian brain here, which is the lion brain. Again, it still is subconscious. Again, it just works. It reacts. But here is the emotions, the amygdala. This is when we get threatened. It triggers a warning, okay? Because it's always looking around. It's always sensing what's happening. And when it senses a threat, that's when it tells the brain just to start to run away, for example, or to fight. Then came the monkey mind, the cortex on top. It's conscious. Its ego is there. The mind chatter is there as well. And the last one is a self-aware brain just behind the forehead. It's conscious, controls all the brains. Okay. When the brain is integrated, the self-aware brain takes us beyond our everyday stressed ego survival brain. Okay, it's a portal into consciousness and creative life. To be conscious of our breath is to observe, to notice, to pay attention to our breath. The process is going on all the time without us knowing. Okay, but when we become conscious, it means to observe, to notice, to pay attention to our breath. So maybe let's do a short practice, and I'll show you what I mean. So for this practice, if you can just close your eyes. If you're not comfortable, you can just lower the eyes. And just notice your your breath as it is entering the nostrils and going down to your chest and belly. Don't do anything, just notice or just observe. Now take a deep breath in, hold as long as you're comfortable, and let go slowly. Pause for a moment or two and start the process again. Do that for a few times. And suddenly you will sink into a quiet space. That's all. You can open your eyes now. This is what the purpose of conscious breath is. And so what does it do? Just a 2 minutes of conscious breathing. This is the power of conscious breathing, to what I call the 5 C's. So the conscious breath, as soon as the breath is going on all the time, but we have to become conscious of it to make it effective. It cools the hot early warning system. I just talked about it, the trigger, which becomes very sensitive with worries. So every little thing will trigger a response, a survival response. So it cools this hot button up here. Yeah. It controls the autopilot of the alligator brain, of the brainstem, so that we become conscious of what we are doing. It calms the constantly chattering monkey mind, because that's where the worries keep going. A real threat, if you see a wild animal chasing you, that's a different kind of a threat. That means you just run. Okay, that's what the brainstem, reptilian brain, the autopilot is for, to make you run. But when you're constantly worrying about things, it just keeps going. Then the lion brain, the amygdala, the emotional brain, thinks there's a problem continuously, so it never settles down. So now it's calming it down. And the last thing, it reconnects. So we were like this, now we are reconnecting to the present moment awareness. That is the power of the 2-minute conscious breathing. It connects. The problem is we cannot sustain this connection. Okay, it just flips. It just and we lose it with stress, with worries, with everything else. So that is where meditation comes in, to make it stronger, so to strengthen these fibers up here, so that it stays and it engages. Okay, so that's where meditation, mindfulness, and all those things come in handy. One thing got to remember is that the breath or a candle or whatever it is only a tool, a technique. It's an anchor. What is important is that space that you drop down to. When you drop down to the space, that space is the same as what we talked about in earlier, when we gave the analogy of the cloud and the sky. That is our natural state of being. That is awareness. And we got to, once you drop into that, then that's the purpose of conscious breathing, or any technique that we use. Okay, but that awareness is what is important. Okay, the process of relaxation, powering down and powering up, relationship between the brain development and process of relaxation, the gateway into the subconscious mind, and the different types of brain waves. So let's start with powering up and down. Now, here, let me just talk very briefly about the brain waves. Our brain, the way it produces electrical activity, and it can be measured, electrical waves, and can be measured by EEG. And the waves are of different speeds. For example, right now we are conscious, it's at a high speed. When we go to sleep, it slows down completely. And so, but there are different levels of the brain waves and different speeds. To give you an analogy, something so that you can remember it by, excuse me. Think of the gear shifting in a car. If you're driving an automatic car, then you don't really recognize when the gears are shifting. All you do is when you start, and then you come to your speed that you desire, and you've gone through all the process of other gear shifting, but you don't aware. And that's the same way. And again, when you when you slow the car, when you stop the car, you go back and you start slowing it down, and it comes down to the first, and you stop. And that is, most people are like that. They only know two states of consciousness, or two states of mind. Okay, the mind that is going right now, the way we're talking, the conscious, wakeful mind, and the mind that goes to sleep, it's quiet mind. In between, they have no idea, because just like the gear shifting, they have no idea how the gears shift. But if you have driven stick shift cars, then when you take off, put the car into the first. As the speed increases, you put in the second, third, and the fourth. And when you want to stop, you go reverse. From the fourth, you bring it down to the third, bring it down to the second, and bring it down to the first, and you stop. And that's the way the brain waves work. Okay, we have the conscious brain right now. Then we can bring it down lower the speed, again, still more, and we can keep going down until you fall asleep. Okay, so if you know this process, and if you know the mental states, then it becomes a lot easier to be able to control the different mindsets. So if you're worried before you go to sleep and you can't sleep, you know what you need to do, okay? So here is a diagram. It's a bit heavy, but wanted to explain something here. If you focus on the left side up here, this is the brain development of a child. So between 0 and 2 years old, the brain is the brain energy, or the motion, or the activity is very low. Okay, it's completely, it's at almost like 0.5 cycles per second. It's very slow. That's why babies tend to sleep a lot more, because they're just falling asleep, because the brain waves are so slow. The activity of the brain is very slow. As the children get older, between 2 and 5, they get into another state. It's called a theta state. So the delta is there, the theta is there. Theta is the in-between state, between falling asleep and alpha level, just before you fall asleep, okay? It's called the twilight sleep, between deep sleep and wakefulness, okay? Again, these are all in the subconscious realm, okay? Or this part of the brain waves. Then as the child gets older, the brain waves start to pick up speed, and you get into the alpha level, which is a creative. It's a bridge between the conscious and the subconscious. So it is still subconscious, but it can also become conscious. And then as the child gets older, with the rational mind coming on full steam with the conscious brain, the brain waves increase. And so this is also the way when we wake up from sleep. We are sleeping, the brain waves are very slow. It's a deep sleep. And then slowly we wake up, the brain waves start to increase in speed, more, until you come to a wakeful state. The problem nowadays, in many cases, is that you are in deep sleep and suddenly the alarm goes. So it just jerks you out from the deep sleep. It doesn't give you a chance to kind of wake up slowly. So all of a sudden you're awake, but then of course you tend to go back to sleep sometimes. Or you are sleeping and you hear this notification on the phones, and you pick it up and start reading your email. So you jump from the quiet mind up here into everyday working mind. So you've missed all these things in between, okay? Now, and all of a sudden, the posting or whatever might make you upset, angry. So you basically lost the chance of waking up slowly, okay? And missing out in the in-between stages. So, and again, when we go to sleep, it's a reverse process. When you go to sleep, or when we relax, or we go into meditation. So we are in the conscious level, the brain. We need to lower it down to the alpha level, and then even lower down a bit. But that's for meditation. But if you want to go to sleep, you can keep going, you keep relaxing, and you fall asleep, okay? So gateway into the subconscious mind. So when the process of relaxation, going to sleep, meditation, or waking up, is the process is you're going from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. So you descend into the subconscious realm. Here are some different brain waves. We talked about these four brain waves, the beta, alpha, theta, and delta. These are the ones that most people, they occur in most people, okay? So the delta is a deep sleep. Theta is, you're drowsy, there are very few thoughts, but vivid imagination. So alpha is the creative, you're calm, very few thoughts, and you're alert. And beta is you're alert, there's mind chatter, and you can get stressed. When you get stressed, the brain waves even go higher. These other waves, gamma, lambda, and epsilon, occur usually in people who have been meditating for a very long time, okay, for years of experience. Then the brains produce these brain waves, and these are higher state consciousness, but are amazingly efficient, and this peak mental, the whole brain is working that we talked about earlier, the whole brain. So in fact, when someone is working at this level, they're working at between 2 to 4 times more efficiently than someone, an average person working with just a regular brainwaves, because they become much more efficient, more effective as well. So next stage is understanding and becoming comfortable with your mind. So learn to observe our internal mental world, levels of mind, the mind, some observations, the benefit of observing our mind. When we observe the mind, so normally up to now, for most people, our attention has always been on the outside because we're very rational minded. So the rational mind, his attention is outside. Everything, material things is outside. When we start to go within, we're now using our right side of the brain, which goes internal. Okay, people don't have that ability or the practice. They've not done it before. So sometimes you'd find it difficult to turn the spotlight on yourself. But when you do, you can observe the mind at a distance and without entanglement. What do I mean? So when you're watching your mind, you don't grab the thoughts as they come, because it'll take you wherever it wants to take you. But you just observe to see exactly how your mind is working. Okay, you're curious. Okay, and you don't worry. Don't become afraid of watching what's happening. Okay, and don't judge that this is a good thought and this is a bad thought. Then you will never learn. But if you can observe like this is the beginning of your personal transformation. And I'll explain as well why it's so important. Okay, because now you know why you do what you do. Okay, with the conditioning of our mind where we had no option but we just took in from other people, see, that is not our fault. Everything happened to us. We were not in a position to say, yes, that I don't want this, what you're giving me, the anger or whatever it is. We were not, so we can't blame ourselves for all that part. But now, knowing what you know, the way how these things work, now it's your responsibility to change. Again, to change if you want to. But now you have a choice. You can change or not change, but you know what you have to do. So levels of mind, there are many levels. I don't know how many levels there are. I don't think people know how many levels are, but all people have found out is that the conscious mind is about 5%. Everything else, 95% is, you can't see, subconscious. The different levels, and you can sink into different levels as you're meditating or relaxing. And there are many levels. People who are meditating for a long time, they can reach quite deep. So this is the ego level, and this is the original conscious or true self awareness, which is what you are getting into when you meditate. Again, I've placed them up here, but I don't know exactly where they are, but I know it's deeper in the subconscious mind. There is no thing that you can see to say that this is exactly where it is. And this subconscious mind is not just, it is endless, it's eternal. We all share this. So, okay, so what I'm talking about is very simple, but in fact, it's quite complicated. So some observations of the mind, the many levels of mind as I talked about. The mind is a thought-making machine. Now, what do I mean by thought-making machine? Just like speech, just like the way speech is a normal part of human condition that we talk, the words are the end result. Thinking is part of our human condition, and thoughts are the end result. Okay, so it's a thought-making machine, just like we talk. It's an individualized thought system. What do I mean by that? This is our individual ego consciousness. Okay, I have no access. I don't know what you're thinking of. Okay, and you don't know what I'm thinking of, because it's based on our conditioning, on our life situations. Okay, so it's our individualized thought system. It's personal. The mind is in a constant state of turmoil, mind chatter that we talked about. The thoughts that occupy our minds are molding our destiny, consciously or unconsciously, because every thought that we have, the thought is energy. If you focus on the thought, then you produce that in the outer world. Okay, the other thing is, when you pay attention, there is no mind chatter. So maybe Umesh, if I can use you as a guinea pig. Can I use you as a guinea pig? Sure. Okay. So what I want you to do is, if you can, and everyone can do it together. But Umesh, you can tell me what happens. Okay. If you can just close your eyes and tell me when, and observe your mind. Pay attention to the mind, and tell me when the first thought appears.
Now.
Okay. Okay, so it's almost 10, 12 seconds. Okay, so 10, 12 seconds, your mind was quiet. Right? Because if the first thought that came in was after 10 seconds, right, it was quiet for 10 seconds. So what it means is that when you pay attention, there's no mind chatter. It's either you paying attention or the mind chatter. Both of them can't happen at the same time. Okay, it's the same thing with conscious breathing. When you're conscious of your breath, then there's no mind chatter. In the same way, okay, when you're paying attention, there's no mind chatter. So you can try it out, and you will see that that's exactly how it works. Okay, whatever you resist will persist. So again, let's try something out, Umesh. So for this one, again, I want you to not think of a monkey. Okay, tell me in the next few minutes what the state of mind is. Just don't think of the monkey. Okay, tell me.
It's calm. There aren't any thoughts, to be honest, so
because
far.
Because when we try to keep resisting the thought of monkey, the monkey keeps coming back. You notice that, or you just notice because you're paying attention, maybe, yeah. But normally what happens is, if I tell you not to do something or not to think of something, it's like a dog holding a bone. Yeah. You just can't let go. You do everything possible, but you just can't let go of that thought because you're trying to prevent it. But as soon as you say, sure, think about the monkey, you'll think about the monkey and everything will stop. It'll go away from your mind. Okay, so that's the power of these thoughts. Here is what I call the pendulum of thought. It's like the pendulum of a grandfather clock going back and forth. Okay, and it normally flows from the past to the future. It never stops in the present. It's always thinking about the past, regrets, memories, opportunities, or the anticipations of future expectations, but it never stops in the present. And that's what meditation does, mindfulness does. It brings this pendulum into the present. So the benefit of observing our mind, we begin to understand the nature of mind, how the mind is operating. We begin to understand the mental processes, and we know why we do and think what we do. or why we think what we think, and why we behave in a certain way. Okay, and what this does is it gives us the ability to direct our thoughts consciously, because once you are aware of your thoughts, then you have the power to turn them on or off. So if you're looking at a thought, then if you let it go, then you're consciously letting it go. But you can stop it, you can move it around, but you have the charge, you are in control. Thoughts don't drag you wherever it wants to, okay? And that way we also overcome the automatic or habitual conditioned thinking, because when you start observing, then you realize that, oh yeah, I didn't want to do this, why did I do it this way? It's the same thing like, if I ask you, how are you? You say, same old, same old. How was your work? Same old, same old. How is life? Same old, same old. It's not same old, same old, but that's the conditioned way we look at life. But as soon as you start observing it and you say, wow, is that what I said? Same old? It's not same old, same old. Okay, because there's so many things happening in life. Okay, and we are basically short-circuiting life. And again, as I mentioned, this is the beginning of transformation. Why? Because now you know how your thoughts work. Now you have the control of what thoughts. Because remember, thoughts, everything in the mind is changing your functioning and the physical aspect of the brain. Up to now, it has been done unconsciously. Now, knowing what you know, you can change it consciously. And that's the power that we all have. Okay. Learning to sit in silence. Why is it difficult to sit in silence? The secret of silence, the present moment, and sometimes people have to show you what is attention and awareness. This is something that Blaise Pascal said over 300-400 years ago, that all of miseries derive from not being able to sit quietly in a room alone. Okay. So why is it so difficult to sit in silence? Because we're always on the go, not just used to sitting and doing nothing. And things like, conditioned mind says, time is money, don't waste it, and all those things keep making us more go forward. Sitting and doing nothing, well, how can you just sit and do nothing? There's no concept of that. We become used to the noise and the stress it creates. So we are motivated by stress. We don't like a quiet mind. We think a silent mind is an empty mind. And we think it's going to affect our brain, our thinking. It doesn't. It doesn't even affect our intellect. All it does, it quietens the mind chatter. But your thinking becomes powerful, because if there's no mind chatter, then you're able to focus, concentrate a lot more. Silence is uncomfortable and unfamiliar. They've found that people become uncomfortable after 4 seconds of silence. So if I stop talking right now, if you didn't know about it, then after 3-4 seconds, people start wondering, why is it stopped? What's happening? Did he forget what he wants to say? And all those stuff. So it's just like when you go to your boss and you ask for a raise, and the boss says, and you say, I've done all this work, and here is what I want. The boss just sits quietly. And after a while, you start thinking that maybe what I'm asking is too much, maybe this, maybe that. So whatever you were asking, X minus, you say, okay, don't worry about it. X minus 20%, I'm willing to accept. The boss hasn't said anything. And this is the way people manipulate others as well, because they just sit quietly and let you become anxious. Okay? They've also done an experiment at a university, where what they did was they took volunteers from 18 years to 77, and both male and female. And they got them to sit one by one, sit in a room with no windows, nothing except the door and a table. And on the table, the professor put a small gizmo, electrical gizmo that would give you a shock. So if you touch it, the button, you press the button, it will give you a shock. Not very dangerous, but just to it will shock you. What if, and let them sit for 15 minutes. And he told them, okay, not to touch it and all that stuff. Let them sit for about 15 minutes. And suddenly, and after the experiment, what he found was almost half or even more people kept touching that switch and getting shocked. because they were bored. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to sit quietly. And it was better to get the shock, basically shock them out of their boredom. That's what he basically was saying. The secret of silence. Silence is heightened by contrast. They did an experiment where they were trying to work out, which is, the effect of music and how it relaxes you. So they had noise and they had a music, and to see the effect of it on the brain. And as they were doing all the studies, and then somehow when they were doing the noise and there was a gap in between before they did anything else, and they did the music, what they found that gap in between of 2 minutes was much more powerful on the brain, the effect of it, than the music itself. It relaxed the brain, it changed the brain, okay? It had a powerful effect on the brain and the body. There is silence in the present moment. When in the present moment, there is space, there is silence. It takes us deep within ourselves. It centers and grounds us, and we get in touch with our real self. So silence, space, awareness, they're all the same. Silence, this is what Buddha said. Silence is an empty space. Space is the home of the awakened mind. Silence and laughter are the keys. Silence within, laughter without. And when laughter comes out from that silence, it's not of this world, it's divine, by an Indian mystic. So what is the present moment? We've heard of many times, this is the present moment. What exactly it is? When we are present, when we are attentive, we are observing, we are mindful, we are aware, we are meditating, okay? And mindfulness and meditation practices get us to go deeper into the present moment. What is attention? Now, without attention, you need attention to do anything that you want in life. Okay? Without attention, you cannot do anything. Where attention goes, the rest of the brain follows. If you pay attention to something up here, the brain is going to go there. So it's in your interest to make sure the attention goes where you want it. Attention acts like a spotlight. It lights up that area. Just like when we were hiking up the mountain, the light was giving us enough light just in front of us. It's like a spotlight. It's fragile, unstable, and fleeting because it's not grounded. Everything takes away our attention. When we are stressed, the first thing that we lose is attention. And this is the paradox. To get out of stress, we need attention. Okay, so that's a challenge. Most important that it's trainable. Awareness. So attention is a spotlight. Awareness is like a lantern. So attention comes from awareness. Awareness, when you're aware of a lot of things around you. So it's like a lantern. Light goes everywhere. And part of that, you can make it into attention like a spotlight. So it just goes onto certain areas only. So wherever you want, you can move it around. Awareness is not something we do. It's what we are. A certain natural state of being, the background, the way what we talked about earlier on, right at the beginning. It is what we came to the world with, but we've forgotten. It's always there, 24/7. That in us that notices the mind chatter is not thinking, but it's awareness, because thinking can't recognize itself. You have to be aware. Okay? It is the present moment. So this is how the 5 components come together in meditation. We start with an I don't know mind. Our conscious breathing takes us deep within ourselves. Our brain and bodies begin to relax. Our mind starts to slow down. The mind chatter decreases and comes to a stop. And we become silent. This is how meditation is. And we drop into awareness. And we are completely present. This is who we are. Okay? So just a few things more, just about how long should you practice? This is an old Zen saying, and the person who must have said it has a great sense of humor. You should sit in meditation for 20 minutes every day. Unless you're too busy, then you should sit for an hour. But these are the things that are important when you sit for meditation. The best time is early morning after you wake up. And the reason is earlier when we were talking about the brain waves, because the brain waves are very quiet when you're sleeping, and they start to increase the speed as we get up, as we awaken more. So there is a time where the brain waves are still slow, and it's easier to sit quietly and to practice. That doesn't mean that you can't do it during the lunchtime or in the evening before going to bed. But just remember that when before you go to bed, you always mostly you are tired, so you may not be able to sit for longer periods of time. You need to keep a regular schedule so you know that this is the time that you're going to do meditation. Of course, determine how long you want to meditate. And people who have not meditated, start with 5 minutes, start with 2 minutes, but do it regularly and increase as you move along. Something that people always worry about is postures. Should they sit on the floor? Should they sit on the chair? Whatever. But the cushions, doesn't matter. All you got to do is it has to be stable. Your spine has to be straight and comfortable, so you don't fall asleep. Okay, and you got to do. You can't think about meditation. Is not something that you think about. And don't give yourself a hard time if you fall asleep or can't meditate, because there's some days you will not be able to meditate. Some days, doesn't matter what you do, you won't be able to quieten down, and it's okay. And some days, you relax too much and you fall asleep, but that's okay too, because you're learning that when you relax, now you've got to stop at a certain point, not go too far. But that comes with practice as well. So don't give yourself a hard time. And there's nothing wrong, and there's no wrong way of doing meditation. We all do it in a different way. Okay? The important thing is that you practice. It is dose dependent. Like I said earlier, it's like the number of pebbles of meditation you throw into the pool of meditation. The more you throw, the ripples come out, the ripples spread out. Okay, and the positive effect of meditation will increase in you. Okay, so it's dose dependent. The more you do, the better it is. Keep in mind, this is the most important thing. Don't take yourself too seriously. Understanding yourself is fun, so lighten up and enjoy the process. And this is with everything. If you can lighten up, your work will become easier. Your relationship will become easier. But we are so serious, so everything becomes serious and then becomes a problem. So let's do, if you have time, we can do a short meditation. Umesh?
Yes, yes, we do have time. Yeah.
Okay. So again, if you can sit up straight, you can close your eyes. If not comfortable, then keep it open. And just notice your breath. Take a deep breath in, hold for a few, as long as you can. Let go slowly. Pause for a couple of moments and start again. As you're doing this, the body and the mind are quieting down, are relaxing. If there is mind chatter, just keep taking a few deep breaths. The mind chatter will go. If the mind chatter is still there, think of the mind chatter as the waves in the ocean. Just like when you try and swim through the waves, it's difficult. It needs a lot of energy. Same way, the mind chatter is taking you all over the place. But if you take a few deep breaths and dive under the waves where it's quiet, You can swim where you want to go. You come out, take a deep breath, and go back in. It's the same way with the mind chatter. Just take a few conscious breaths and sink below the mind chatter, where it's quiet. This is awareness. This is the background on which everything happens. Just stay there in the quiet space. Now from this space, I want you to take your attention back to your breath. Just notice the breath like a spotlight. If attention moves away, just bring it back. You can bring the attention back to the awareness. Stay there for a moment or two. This time, take the attention and see if you can see any thoughts. If there are any thoughts, just watch. Don't get entangled with them. Bring your attention back to the awareness, the quiet spot, silence. Now this time, I want to take the attention out and turn it around so it faces the awareness. The spotlight is on awareness. Just watch awareness, what it feels like. What is it? Don't use any thoughts, just observe. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, so I want to leave you with a mindfulness practice, which I found is amazingly powerful. The more I think about it, and it's called STOP, S-T-O-P. And what it means is S stands for stop, T means take a deep breath, O means observe, and P means proceed. So what you do is during the day, whatever you're doing, just stop for the moment. So what it does is we normally are on autopilot. So as soon as you stop, you're breaking the cycle. Now you're in the present moment. It brings you in the present moment. Now take a few deep breaths. So what you do is you're sinking into the present moment. Now observe how is your mind now? How is your body? If it still feels tense, if your mind is still, there's a lot of chatter, take a few more deep breaths and sink further in. And then P is to proceed. So what you can do is proceed on this, what you were doing, or you can change course. But now you're not on an autopilot. You're coming from within, and so it's a different way of doing things. Okay? It's a very simple exercise, but if you can do it during the day, it will break that cycle of the autopilot. Okay, then it brings you in the present moment, and that's what we need to do. And with the meditation practice, it will reinforce coming into present moment and make us go deeper into it, and that's what we have to do. Okay. Well, that's the end of the presentation. Here's some information if you need. Umesh has got all my information as well. And I'll open it up for questions and answers.
Thank you, Aziz. Really amazing presentation, really amazing. We've got a few questions and I'll ask them. Right, so the first question, when meditating, you want quietness, but noise sometimes seems to interfere, which leads to difficulty in concentration. How can one control that or minimize the effect?
So what you do is when you are sitting and you're trying to be quiet and there's noise, don't resist the noise. Let the noise be. Because the harder you try to get rid of the noise, the more it's going to stay. So as soon as you kind of let it be, it'll merge in the background. So it's like when you hear the dog barking across the street and you're trying to meditate, just sit there. Just let the sound come in. And you keep going. And pretty soon you'll move beyond the sound. But if you keep saying, oh, I can't meditate because of this, you're not going to do anything. It's not going to help you. So just let it be. Bring everything in to let them go. Don't resist. Don't put a wall in there. Okay? Bring it in. Don't be afraid of it. There's a smell, there is whatever it is, just bring it in and let it go.
Great. Okay, thanks. Can you put the last slide on? People want to just take the email address
Sure.
From you. Whilst you're doing that, I will read out the next question.
Sure.
Why was epsilon the opposite end to the very high frequency waves, but it is good for meditation?
So what they have found, again, these studies are very recent because up to about just recently, they had no idea that these other waves existed. Now they're experimenting on the Buddhist monks. A lot of people have been meditating for 30, 40 years, and they're discovering all these things completely new, which they were not aware of it. So they found the gamma waves and people operating from that, and they even found that at certain times you could even go up. But interestingly, they also found that you could go even below the delta, the epsilon. And somehow, again, no one knows, but it circles back to lambda, up to the top. So it basically goes from the top to the bottom, very high frequency and very low frequency. It seems to be cycling. But exactly why it does, I don't know. I mean, I've just read about it. I've not experienced it. Gamma I have, but not lambda. And epsilon, you can go even deeper than sleep. So when you're meditating, you can come to a state that is so very quiet that is even below sleep. So you may be touching that epsilon level, but again, I don't have anything to say that that's exactly what I was kind of feeling. But yeah, so there is a cycle. Look back within the two.
Thank you for that. Next question. Do you meditate with your conscious or unconscious mind?
So you start off with the conscious mind, right? So for example, when I sit, when I wake up, so it's not completely conscious, but it is just waking up. So I sit, and then so as you start to relax, so the conscious mind, the next level, alpha straddles both conscious and the subconscious mind. Okay, and then the theta is subconscious and delta is subconscious. So even, for example, if I'm sitting right now, my mind is conscious. So if I want to meditate, as soon as I close my eyes, 80% of the visual information stops. So my mind automatically starts to slow down because all this is not coming in. Only 20% comes in from the ears and the touch and all that, right? So already the mind, the brain is the brain starts to slow down. The mind starts to slow down as well, and then so it drops. So from the beta level, the conscious level, it drops down into a alpha level, beta level. That's a kind of overlap it does. That's a state that you want to be, but you can go deeper. Sometimes when you go too deep, you fall asleep, but you can go deeper and be there as well.
Okay, thank you. Interesting question. Is silence like a black hole which takes you to a different realm?
Again, I don't know whether it's like a black hole, because my experience is not there, but it does take you into a different realm because it quietens you down completely. Okay, what are the properties of the realm? I don't know. I've not experienced them, or I might have experienced them, but I don't know. I can't explain. But it takes you. It's the same thing. When the pendulum of thought that I showed you just goes back and forth, it just goes horizontal. When you go into the present moment, when the pendulum stops in the present moment, with practice, instead of going horizontally, we are going deeper into the moment. So we begin to know this moment much more. So if I'm walking, initially when I'm walking, I see all the trees are the same. The more I become aware, I begin to see the differences in the trees. And even more present, I can see the leaves are different, the way they hang differently. And that's what it does. The more present you become, the deeper you go. You're going vertically now, not horizontally. You're not skimming the surface. It's not a superficial thing. You're going deeper. So you start to notice different things. So instead of everything being the same, the trees, you start to notice the different trees. Each one is a different entity. The way they, branches, leaves, everything, the root, the trunks. So that's you see more. It opens up a lot more world for you.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is attention is trainable, but how does one train that?
So when we did a couple of things today, and the easiest and the best way is you can close your eyes and just notice your breath. Bring attention to that, and if attention, and suddenly you find that it's moved away to the mind chatter, gently bring it back, over and over, and do it thousands of times until it starts to take hold. It becomes easier. Okay, because for most of us, we have lost control of our attention. It's not grounded in awareness. So anything and everything can pull. And there's a saying that if you're going to lose your attention, you will. Just like that. Because everything carries it away. But you have to train it. And the way I look at it is you have to reclaim the attention that you're losing on social media, conditioned mind. You have to protect it, and then you have to train it so that you are in control of your attention. You can put attention where you want it. So it's a long process. You have to keep doing it over and over again. Okay? And then and it does actually, within a short time doing mindfulness exercise, they've found that attention becomes much stronger. Just 3-4 days of mindfulness, they're finding the difference. So in fact, give you an example, if I'm working on a project and I'm called away, or the phone rings and I pick up the phone, they found that for me to come back to my work, it's going to take me 20 minutes to get back into the focus that I was working on. Now, the studies are showing that with mindfulness practice, if you are pulled away, you can go back, boom, and you can go straight into your work because your mind is quiet. You have control of attention. Okay.
Great, Thank you. Thank you for that. I don't think there are any other questions that I have written down, and no other questions in the chat as well. Yeah, I think we're done. Aziz, thank you so much. Very, very interesting and really well explained. Once again, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining today's presentation. Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Thank you, Umesh. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Thank you very much.
Bye.